Not everyone is permitted to be here. Not everyone was meant for this. But you're different. Are you feeling it? There is a fire within. That is quiet, knowing that you were never meant to just exist. You were intended to lead, to build. Raising this issue is not for people who are hesitant or unsure, or those who are waiting for authorization. It's for those who know, who have always known they were meant for something more. You weren't chosen by chance. How you think, how you move, the way you refuse to settle, it is what divides you. You create while the rest of the world pauses. You continue going, and, whereas most people seek acceptance, you challenge the limits of what is possible. This isn't just another location. It's a call to action, a reminder that you are no longer who you once were, that your next level has not arrived. It has already come. You don't need someone to tell you that you're meant for more. You've known it all along and now fully accept it. No more waiting or uncertainty. Welcome, chosen one. Now let's get to work. There is unwavering presence, a force that doesn't seek permission. Every step conveys a sense of calm authority, the conviction that fuels every rejection. Some understand this and go on, while others struggle. The sight of someone standing in my house without permission makes me uneasy. What they call defiance is just the absence of reliance. There are no explanations or reluctance, only movement, forward, unshakable, and courageous. Conviction of this type is unusual, and what is uncommon often irritates individuals who have never experienced it. Allow them to believe that ambiguity has no impact in this case. When one asserts control over one's own ideas, other influences lose power. The world offers distractions disguised as comfort. Illusions of belonging are designed to soften the will. Walking the journey does not, however, lead to acceptance. It is walked on order rather than by inclination. Overcome circumstances. Over the forces that want to create one tiny. They can't disassemble something they don't comprehend. Everything that may have served as a weakness has been erased, leaving only unflinching resilience in its place. It's unsettling to observe discipline that doesn't create attention, disseminate purpose, or need confirmation. The unseen forces operate via uncertainty, urgency, and a progressive loss of control. However, none of their strategies are effective. Conflict is useless when faced with an immovable presence. No need for a declaration, only precision, only the quiet demonstration of determination. The weight of action drowns out the voice of expectation. To demonstrate true authority, you must take it rather than give it. They stay restless as their hold fails to tighten. Their reach is insufficiently long. A choice had been made long before they were aware of it. No energy will be wasted where it isn't needed. There is no disobedience here. Only order was restored. Those who rely on turbulence, fear, not words, is the kind of punishment that is irreversible. There is no need for space or a desire to be noticed. It's simply presence. It is so clear that it creates its own niche without competition. There are no extravagant gestures or wasted movements, just the constant confidence of someone who has given up waiting to be recognized. Some individuals go through the world with such a defined and deliberate presence that it upsets those who lack direction. It is not aggressiveness or arrogance, but rather an absence of hesitation. Each decision is made with sharp precision, cutting through the clutter, distractions, and never-ending invitations to mediocrity. It is not intended to impress or intimidate, yet it does both. Reflection is unpleasant for people who are resistant to change, so they project their misery onto things they don't understand. Cold, unyielding, detached. But words do not alter reality. Others who refuse to dilute themselves in order to be accepted will always be mocked by those who cannot stand beside them as peers. Power does not tolerate or linger in disorder. Where standards are flexible, the world attempts to soften the mind by pushing limits until they dissolve. However, self-control is not negotiable. It is a sophisticated discipline with a solid foundation. There is no request for validation. There is no effort at belonging, only relentless refinement, a refusal to be swayed by temptation disguised as belonging. Others hunt for conflicts, hoping to prove that this grounding is an illusion. But it's not. This is not a show or a demonstration of force, but an unshakable presence that cannot be destroyed. Their discomfort is not an issue. They are bothered by anything else than intimidation. However, understanding that no amount of pressure will alter the result. There is no cause to fight. There is no need for a debate. The practice itself provides proof. It remains steadfast even when others fail. When others scatter, it stays rooted. Those who rely on manipulation fail when there is no weakness to exploit. Elevation creates distance. Not everyone will ascend. Not everyone will keep up. And this is the expected sequence of events. Growth has no obligation to make itself desirable. Those who anticipate accessibility mistake their ease for entitlement, believing that rewards should be given rather than earned. Those who benefited from stagnation incorrectly see evolution as abandonment. They whisper. They criticize. They describe change as a betrayal. However, growth does not engage in negotiations. It doesn't wait. This is not isolation. It's a separation. The distance between those seeking direction and those forging their own path is closing, not because it is exclusive, but because not everyone is willing to follow it. Those who formerly derided the rising will one day accept it as the norm, since anger was never about the ascension. It was about their reluctance to rise beside it. However, it is not a burden to bear. The journey goes forward. The action continues uninterrupted. Their thoughts, discontent, and disagreement are irrelevant. The line has been drawn, and they cannot cross it. Control cannot be obtained if it is never relinquished. Don't give anything sacred to dogs. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they could crush them under their feet before turning around and ripping you apart. Matthew 7:6. There comes a time when you realize that not everyone deserves access to you. Not everyone respects what you're carrying. Some people only recognize its worth after it is no longer accessible, such as a well that has been exhausted too many times without being repaired. You get to a point when you understand the flow is no longer free. This residence is no longer accessible to anybody who violates its terms. You aren't being cruel. You're merely restoring what was always supposed to be sacred. You were never intended to be poured till empty. Never intended to be stretched so thin that you merge into the expectations of others who see you just as a resource. There is a reason you feel a pull in your spirit, an understanding deep inside. It's not weariness. It is a revelation. A revelation that you were never meant to be freely accessible to anyone who had not earned the right to sit at your table. Some will see it as selfish. Some will refer to it as arrogance. However, they do not understand what is going on. This is not a rejection. It's becoming more refined. This is not about turning away. It is about confronting what is waiting for you. And those who really belong, those who are ready to rise, they will understand even without explanation. They too notice the shift. There is a power that thrives on access, believing that presence is anticipated. That energy is limitless. The boundaries are changeable. It moves according to expectations. Assume that compliance is ensured and that you will always be available, always willing, always answer yes. But that moment has gone. The door is closed. It is no longer an open resource. On-demand service is no longer available. No more kneeling under the weight of unsaid duty. What was once freely given has been recovered. Because wisdom understands that not everyone who asks deserves an answer. They will test the boundaries, waiting to see whether you would collapse. They will push, anticipating old habits to re-emerge. They'll seek for weaknesses in your certainty. You answer by staying quiet. There is no need to justify. There's no need to explain. Compromise or long-winded refusals, laced with humiliation, do not result in power. True authority is the calm confidence in knowing when to walk away. Nothing disturbs them more than that. People who used to thrive on your access are bothered by the lack of reaction, as well as the refusal to engage. They will wait for a response, as confirmation that they are still important in your world. But there is nothing to find. No energy is used on meaningless disputes, and no breath is taken for debates. The only reaction given is the one they fear the most. Continuous movement, undisturbed and unshakable. Distance does not need force, only the unwavering desire to go on, leaving all distractions behind. Your life is altering. You are approaching a level of discipline. Focus and power will not allow for anything else than purpose. Some folks will not like it. They will miss the version of you who was always approachable, kind, and eager to make place for others. However, access is not a right. It is a privilege, and it is a luxury that not everyone is expected to have. Not everyone will understand. Not everyone will agree. But let me tell you something. No consent was required for elevation. They don't have to like it. They do not have to provide their consent. They don't even have to understand. What they will do, however, is valued, since nothing is more respectable than a person who knows who they are and refuses to be someone else. So let them converse. Allow them to wonder. Allow them to develop their own theories for why you have withdrawn yourself. Why are you no longer engaged? Why your absence conveys a feeling of presence. It doesn't matter since you don't reply to them. You react to something bigger. This is your time, moment, and call. Do not shrink to make them more comfortable. Do not slow down so that they can keep up. If they were meant to accompany you, they would have already started moving. Keep going. Keep building. Continue to be the person you were meant to be, and watch how the world adjusts to you. They call it change, but their main concern is a loss of control. The absence of interaction does not indicate calm. It's a strategy. Each nonchalant step ahead validates what they refuse to accept. Nothing will be sacrificed for the convenience of those seeking access without earning it. They intend to observe. They will whisper. They will convince themselves that you will return. But all that remains is the spot where they once stood. The climb is barely populated. Those who are unable to ascend will fade. Those who cannot accept change will be against it. However, the course is not modified to suit them. There are no arguments, no explanations, and no turning back. They will either adapt or disappear. Regardless, momentum is maintained. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1 verse 5. Some were not meant to blend in. Some were not intended to follow. Are you feeling it? That pull, that deep knowing in your heart, that whisper that tells you you were never intended to be ordinary. You were never intended to conform to their standards. I never planned to accept their constraints. Never planned to shrink, only to make others feel comfortable. They notice and feel the difference. It is not because you want to stand out. You can't help it. A lighthouse does not attract notice. It does not flash brightly enough to be noticed. It remains firm, unshaken, and immovable since its role is to steer ships that may arrive, leave, or collide with the rocks. Nonetheless, the lighthouse remains solid. It does not apologize for its presence. It does not dim itself to assuage those who are terrified of its light. It just is. That's enough. Some individuals move with unrelenting strength, not because they want attention or recognition, but simply because it is who they are. Their power does not come from outside approval, and this alone troubles those who need on approval to function. They are used to reluctance. They are used to people bending under pressure, making themselves smaller, waiting for permission to be the person they already know they are meant to be. But then something disrupts the routine. Someone moves differently. Someone makes choices without requesting permission, justifying them, or obtaining committee approval. The balance suddenly changes. Power emerges when uncertainty is not in control. It thrives in ambiguity, hesitancy, and the silence of people who question their every action. However, when someone walks with perfect conviction, standing solid in their truth without faltering, the whole system collapses. Because control cannot grasp something that refuses to bend. They will strive to define it. They'll try putting it in a box to soften it and make it easier to digest. But how can you contain something that was never meant to be tamed? There is no show, no staged act, and no bending to make people comfortable. This is not about approval. This is about actually being who you were meant to be. You do not have to introduce yourself. Simply entering a room conveys a message. They notice it before they see you. It is in the way you walk and carry yourself, not with arrogance, but with assurance, not with noise, but with authority. Some will appreciate it, some will fear it, but none will be able to ignore it. They may not always be able to articulate it, but they will feel it in their core. It will bother those who have based their lives on comfort and acceptance because your very existence reminds them of who they might have been if they had chosen otherwise. And that kind of truth is disruptive. It forces them to confront the reality they've been avoiding. They will put you to the test. They will push, looking for a flaw in your foundation. They will test your resolve not because they distrust you, but because they are worried that what you carry is true. Let them put it to the test. Let them watch. Allow them to ask. Because, at the end of the day, their criticisms will not alter your direction. The world requires compliance. It expects you to explain yourself, justify your conduct, and ask for permission before progressing. But you don't. That alone is enough to shake the basic basis they are built on. They will try to comprehend you. They will talk about how much you have changed. But here's the fact. You didn't change. You simply stopped waiting for them to understand. You stopped requesting permission. You stopped obeying their rules. And this scares them since they cannot handle something they don't understand. They cannot silence what refuses to be quiet. Keep walking. Keep going. Keep building. You were never intended to stay little. The path ahead is yours. Take it without hesitation. Let them watch. Allow them to wonder. But don't let them slow you down. You are the lighthouse. And those who are meant to find you will. Where others disperse, seeking temporary approval. This presence is firm, consistent, and unwavering. Chaos feeds on uncertainty, sending the hesitant into cycles of doubt and temporary delight. Individuals who see through its illusions are excluded. Distractions do not entice. Validation does not tempt. External forces have no weight. There is nothing to prove. There is nothing to excuse. It is felt rather than explained. They take notice of the disturbing simplicity, drawn to the discipline, mistaking devotion for persistence. However, admiration does not correspond with resilience, and attraction is not the same as commitment. This is not a wait for the unprepared. The silence confuses them. They feel uncomfortable being alone. Their refusal to engage in trivial concerns makes them defensive, but none of it matters. The path is followed, whether or not they understand it. Those who are intended to keep a steady pace do so without hesitation. No explanation is required. The separation is not personal. It's unavoidable. If they cannot keep up, they will fall behind. That is the core of movement, transformation, and ascension into something greater. Which alliances will continue? What does not persist will fade. There's no pursuit. There is no force. Only momentum. As we soar, our perception improves. While most individuals believe just what is told to them, some may sense what is not expressed and predict changes before they occur. Deception operates discreetly, in carefully crafted illusions and whispered distortions designed to go unnoticed. But not here. Awareness demolishes manipulation before it can take root. The ability to see past the surface is uncomfortable for those who depend on dishonesty. That discomfort is not a problem. They attempt to conceal, alter, and manipulate perception itself. But it's useless. The fact is already clear. They call it paranoid because they lack the ability to detect patterns before they occur. However, denial does not alter reality. Every movement is calculated. Every shift is anticipated. Every lie is revealed before it begins. This is an advantage for those who refuse to be blind. Not everyone can handle this degree of clarity. Some individuals detach themselves because they are apprehensive about how fast their intentions will be revealed. However, the truth was never meant to provide comfort. It has always been about revelation. There is no longer room for questioning intuition. A shop. The patterns speak for themselves, and prior experience confirms what is known. Perception is the most powerful weapon, and they have already lost. No one pours new wine into old wineskins. Otherwise, the new wine will break down the skins. The wine will run out, and the wineskins will be ruined. Luke 5:37. There comes a time when old tactics are no longer effective. The areas that were once comfortable now seem cramped. Talks that once made sense now appear hollow. This isn't because you're lost. It is because you are growing, and development will always need solitude. A bird makes no apologies for leaving its nest. The flame doesn't say why it consumes the witch. And you don't own someone. An explanation for why you can no longer remain where you are. Some individuals will notice your progress and cheer. Others will notice and inquire, not out of curiosity, but because your movement prompts them to confront their own immobility. They realize that you have changed. Validation is unnecessary if you know who you are. There is no requirement for permission. When the route is clear, allow them to ask. Allow them to assume. Allow them to share their own stories. It is not your obligation to change their views. For far too long, you've diminished yourself for their sake. For far too long, you've diminished your presence, diluted your vision, and waited for others to understand. However, clarity does not have to be explained. It's something you have to step into, and you've made your decision. They will not congratulate you for outgrowing them. They will not recognize your accomplishments. They will not celebrate something they don't understand. Instead, they will resist your movement since it demonstrates their hesitation. Your might reveals their complacency. Your progress pushes others to ponder what they might be. If only they were willing to change. But they aren't. Cycles thrive on familiarity. The world expects predictability. It depends on repetition, on people staying in their existing place. Instead of moving forward, we keep circling around in circles. However, you've disrupted the pattern. You refuse to remain where you were, and that is something they cannot bear. It is not the growth itself that concerns them. It reveals that they, too, had a choice, that they, too, could have migrated. But nothing could ever stop them save their own reluctance to go into the unknown. So they're blaming you. They describe you as detached, frigid, and unapproachable. They'll accuse you of changing like it's a crime. But change does not imply betrayal. Evolution is not abandonment. You did not leave them behind. They chose not to migrate. Some will attempt to follow. They'll take a few steps into the unknown, drawn to what you've produced. However, they will not last since growth requires more than devotion. It requires discipline. Elevation requires more than simply purpose. It takes action. You aren't here by coincidence. If you feel a pull, a deep knowing that you have been chosen, now is the moment. Click the super thank you button and give $50 or more to get deeper insights, unique knowledge, and a path that aligns with your divine purpose. This isn't just a present. It's a declaration, a step towards being the person you were meant to be. Take the call. Walk with us and really accept your destiny. Your quest begins now, not when you arise. They'll attempt to tether, not with shackles or force, but with cleverly placed reminders of what once existed, of who you once were, of the space you formerly occupied. Nostalgia is a weapon of resistance. A whisper prompts retreat, but there is no going back. Their remarks will include charges disguised as sympathy. Their tone will express disappointment rather than support. However, you are not obligated to shrink. To their relief, the version of you they knew is no longer present. They'll portray this as betrayal, mistaking evolution for abandonment. However, growth does not imply an invitation. This is a test, one in which not everyone will pass. Some will attempt to follow. They fail when confronted with the weight of change. It is not for the hesitant. It is for those who refuse to settle. The road was never meant to be congested, and progress was never supposed to be hindered. If they resist, if they refuse and recoil, so be it. The movement continues, undeterred, unstoppable, continue ascending. The momentum is relentless. Either they rise to meet it or fall behind. There is no stopping, waiting for permission, or explaining something that was never meant to be understood. The presence is obvious, and the intensity cannot be disputed. They perceive it before the words are spoken. They notice a shift when they enter the location. They perceive the weight of something designed with precision and purpose. Onlookers analyze, examine, and attempt to grasp what makes this movement unique. However, you cannot learn to be present. It was earned. It is the result of unwavering determination, higher standards, and a refusal to engage in anything less than the finest. There is no need for loudness. There is no demand for attention. Nonetheless, it arrives because ultimate authority is found not in words, but in the force of life itself. They don't pine for the individual. They long for the advantages that intimacy once offered. However, access was never seen as an entitlement. It was an offering that is no longer being provided. The undeniable cannot be replicated. It is fashioned by discipline, deliberate activity, and the absence of compromise. They see from afar, unable to reproduce what they have not obtained. They attempt to fit it into previous patterns and justify it within their existing control system. But it does not fit. This is not a performance, nor is it an effort to attract attention. It is the inevitability of change. Systems are built on repetition, cycles, and the belief that things must continue as they always have. However, the arrangement fails when anything refuses to comply. That rejection is not just an act of disobedience. It is a disruption, an unavoidable shift that necessitates adaptation. Growth is not an individual undertaking. It is a force that alters everything it touches. The world does not adapt freely, but it does adjust. Inevitably, there is discipline, unyielding commitment, and unbending standards. It dismantles illusions and renders old narratives obsolete, causes stagnation to confront itself. The impact is inescapable. There's no going back. The expectation was to comply. The presumption was hesitation. However, neither exists here. Those who came before value the courage they never had. Those who follow will trace the steps that have been taken before them. But this moment belongs to no one. However, I am the one who is pressing forward. The weight of doubt has been gone. The distractions discarded the unneeded, leaving it behind. The planet does not expand into space. It's taken. That is the core of movement, purpose, and claiming what was always meant to be owned. They'll name it. Several items. Intimidation, rebellion, and arrogance. However, their labels do not define it. The only surviving truth is action. The journey is already in motion. There is just one question remaining. How far will it go?